These are the worst 5 losses of the Melbourne Football Club, a club that has bestowed more pain on their fans than probably any other of the 18, maybe St Kilda, but a man who's endured a lot of that pain whilst making us laugh for many decades. Rob Sitch, what an honour. Thank you for joining me, Rob.
Thank you, Danny. We do it in private talking about football, so it's weird to have it recorded.
Yeah.
Yes, Melbourne is the oldest football club in the world, so they've managed to inflict pain over a very, very long period of time. Where's my support dog?
So what year do you remember, like, really getting into Melbourne?
Sign of my age. It's late 60s.
So after the last premiership.
Yeah, I was 2
in Melbourne.
in the last premiership. But I've had it described to me. So it was a really long... So we've lived through various eras when Brassey was going to come back and solve it. But we had some highlights. So guys like John Northey, Swooper Northey, that was a golden era. It was just... It just felt like... Well, the players were walking on water. Neil Danaher, another sort of a golden era in my time. There's a lot of hope along the way.
Alan Jakovich would have been quite an excitement machine.
Alan Jakovich, we always had a bit of star. Jeff Farmer,
yes,
Wiz, Jakovich, those sorts of players. Robert Flower was obviously, to me, the pound for pound the greatest footballer that's ever walked on the MCG.
Not bad.
My dad says Alan LaFontaine was his equal.
Okay.
I'll take his word for it. I've seen a courtroom sketch of what he did.
So you know you've got an embarrassment of riches to choose from.
I think so.
All right, number 5.
Well, this is sort of like the saddest I've ever felt was when Tom Scully came to Melbourne as a very high draft pick, 1 or 2, and everyone was saying he was leaving and
going to GWS, the new club that was getting everyone handed to them.
Yeah, and as I went to a game to see Tom Scully, it was at its absolute peak. I was sitting at the punt road end behind a whole bunch of kids with signs saying, "Stay, Tom, we want to." And as I'd gone into the ground, I'd bumped into an old friend who was connected with something to do with the club. Said he's not only going, he told me his deal.
Oh.
And I sat there for a whole game watching a guy play. I think we lost the game. These kids had banners, and I just wanted to say, hey, listen up, I know the truth.
You're like the old man who knows the volcano's about to explode.
This is all so sad. Put your signs down, let's all go home.
Number 4.
It's 2011, round 19. We lost by 186 points to Geelong.
Yes.
It's the second greatest loss. I can't remember what the worst is. And I think that Bailey was sacked, the coach was sacked after that.
Oh, God rest him, Dean Bailey.
Yeah, well, and I actually thought he got through all of that and we got a few draft picks. He had the right, he sort of had a modern coach's attitude. And I thought he was okay. Sadly, the scoreboard had a different opinion.
I think the biggest ever loss in AFL history was against Melbourne, wasn't it? Fitzroy beating you by 190 points.
That's it. I was at that game.
Were you?
It didn't hurt as much.
It was just excitement.
Did not hurt as much.
Number 3.
Round 2, 2012 versus West Coast. And if I'm right, it was Mark Neal's second game.
Okay.
So after the first one, he had some issues. I'm not going to lose faith in the guys. We've got a lot to work on. Very positive, very up.
Yeah.
We lost by about 100 points to West Coast, and the next press conference, some of these blokes are going to get it. They're going to have to lift it. And I've gone, we've not only lost the game, we've lost the players.
So he was throwing players under a bus in his second game.
After the week, he was Nelson Mandela week 1. And then... And he turned into a kind of a drunk autocrat. And I just went, and I've gone, this is gone. And so round 2, I knew the season was over, as it proved to be, including, I think, Mark's tenure as... I don't think he saw out the season.
So you knew the season was over, you knew this coach was over. Yeah. What do you do at that point? Do you start looking at overseas trips or just how the fishing is? Or do you go into rugby league? Or
So there's always a little bit of hope. But you know that you're going to hear the phrase stand-in coach before the end of the season. I think it was Craig. What was the Adelaide?
Oh, Neil Craig.
Neil Craig came in.
Yeah, that's right. He was all right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay. Number 2.
It was a loss to Collingwood, last round 17, and we needed it to get into the finals.
It's always...
And you turn up and you go, I know my team, we're not going to win today.
This is the battle cry of the hardened football fan who has seen so many ways of losing. Because you tend to only win in one way, but there's so many ways you can lose.
There's so many ways to lose. And I think Grundy, irony of ironies, actually killed us that day. I remember going, what a footballer he is. Wouldn't it be great if we had him? And then we lost, and then there was the result in West Coast had to be in our favour, and I think we lost by 0.5 percentage points. And it's like you're just like these sad little people that spent the whole season worrying about something for nothing.
And you know that even if you do get into the finals by luck of the draw, you won't last as long.
No. You know that it's a fairy tale with a bad ending.
Yeah.
And so the funny thing is, the next year, it was sort of the way the hammer came down would come a little later in the season, in that period, so we were getting better. But we won 2 finals, then went to West Coast.
Oh, yes.
And then the hammer came down.
And you went over to Perth for that.
Yeah.
Oh.
But the great thing about the end of that game was I could look forward to a red eye back to Melbourne. So it was, I mean, that's just such a great way to come home with sad Melbourne supporters on a red eye.
And the number 1 loss of the 21st century for the Melbourne Football Club, Rob Sitch.
It's multiple losses in the one concept.
See, I wouldn't normally allow this, but for Melbourne, I think this is right.
Well, yeah, it is, because it was the same game every time. We sold all these games to Brisbane to fly up there to lose. And so it was almost like handing over demerit points to your spouse. We sort of, here, you can buy 4 premiership points off us.
Oh.
And our team had to travel, and the fans had to travel to lose, and you're going, it was like, I look back at that, so I can't pick one out because I don't think we won one.
Oh. What year is this?
I think it was like 6 years ago, but I'll look it up and it'll be 12 years ago.
Oh, man, time works like that.
I think Paul Gardner was president at the time and was doing a pretty decent job, so it looked like sunny days were ahead, but we're a weak club at the time.
Mm. How is Melbourne weak? You've got all the rich fans.
Yeah, but they're all MCC members.
Right. So that's the list, Melbourne fans. I'm sure you have a plethora of other games that you would add to Rob's list. Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, all of that malarkey. And watch all the Working Dog shows. Have you been paying attention? Thank God you're here. Cheap seats. Go get old episodes of Frontline on iView. Is that where they are?
I believe so.
Sure. Just, get your late show VHSs out. Just help the man out.
Crime Stoppers. We've got a few going.